One of the best presentations that I've ever watched was from this gentleman, and it was about creating your own luck. Now, this concept that was really unique to me at the time because the concept of luck kind of seemed a bit of like woo-woo science, and I didn't really know if it was true. However, after looking into it, after doing the research, I'm here to tell you there are actual ways to increase your luck as a high performer. So I'm going to walk you through exactly how I would go about this, and we're going to break it down in today's presentation. All right, so to start us off, we're going to talk about increasing your own luck. And like I said, this could be easily one of the best presentations you've ever received. It's from your boys truly, so Mr. High Performance. Let's get right into it. Now, let's first tackle what is luck. It is defined here that luck is the phenomenon where improbable, unplanned, or chance events occur that significantly affect someone's life, usually classified as either surprisingly positive, i.e. good luck, or disappointingly negative, i.e. bad luck. It represents outcomes governed by probability rather than an individual's direct control or deliberate action. And this definition really is just tying into what luck is in a nutshell. But the question that a lot of you might be asking is the concept of luck even real? Like I said before, is luck this just woo-woo science concept, or are there actually people who are more luckier than others? So the person who did the most research on this topic was actually this gentleman by the name of Dr. Richard Wiseman. And he spent a decade studying hundreds of self-proclaimed lucky people and also self-proclaimed unlucky people. And basically what he found in his research, the concept of luck was a self-fulfilling prophecy shaped by 4 distinct biological pillars. So in a nutshell, I want to break it down and really summarize this video for you very quickly, that the concept of being lucky isn't really real. However, you can actually increase your surface area for luck, and we're going to talk about that. And some of you might argue, well, I'm lucky because I was born into this family, or I'm unlucky because I came from this certain background. But in this presentation, I'm going to break down why those are beliefs, and those beliefs can actually change depending on your perspective. So to summarize very quickly, as defined by Dr. Richard Wiseman, the concept of being luckier than others isn't real. However, I'm going to break something down that might be quite unique to all of you. Let's get into it. So the 4 pillars that Dr. Wiseman had talked about throughout his research was, number 1, being able to spot opportunities. We're going to talk about this throughout this presentation, but one thing that's very important to understand is that people who consider themselves lucky are actually a lot better at spotting opportunities than others. Remember, we all live in the same world. We're all presented with typically more or less the same opportunities. Like, let's say you grew up in North America, for example. Some of the opportunities that you might have came across might have been open to others as well. However, if you're constantly looking for these opportunities, you might be more prone to receive them, apply for them, and consider yourself more lucky in the process. Another thing is that leveraging that gut feeling and that intuition. So this is a very important factor, and one of the pillars that Dr. Wiseman had talked about. You need to understand that people who rely on their gut feeling and their intuition consider themselves more lucky. And you probably experienced this before, where you've walked down certain areas or you've seen certain people and they might have given you that weird feeling like you don't trust them, or you don't know if you could share some of your expertise with these people. That's your gut feeling and that's your intuition, and that's what lucky people rely on. Another thing is having positive expectations. So what was quite interesting about this finding was, if you believe that you have a positive expectation for an event, typically those outcomes came to be, versus if you also believe that you had a negative expectation for a particular event, those negative expectations came to be as well. So I want you to think about a time where you had to do something, right? Let's say you had to go to a particular networking event. Lucky people would typically have a more positive expectation of the event, whereas unlucky people, or people who would consider themselves unlucky, would have a negative expectation of the event. And the final thing he talked about was labeling. If you ask people in life, would you consider yourself a lucky person or an unlucky person? This is a form of labeling. If you believe that you are lucky, chances are you will look for luck or circumstances in your life that would make you feel lucky, and as a result, you would feel like you're a lucky person. On the contrary, if you feel like you're unlucky, you'll find evidence for that finding as well. And I've talked about this in many videos before. As humans, we're rational beings, so we're constantly looking for evidence to prove ourselves right. So by labeling yourself as a lucky or an unlucky person, you'll find evidence for both those scenarios. So as I quickly explained throughout this video, the concept of someone being more lucky than someone else isn't actually true. However, we might ask the question, how can we create more luck in our lives? And let's break this down. So the first thing we need to understand is that the concept of luck in itself is practically a mindset. Your mindset will be shaped and formed by the luck that you have. Like I said before, through labeling. If you're labeling yourself as a lucky person, you will look for evidence in your life where that is true. Versus if you label yourself as an unlucky person, you'll find evidence for that as well. One of the quotes I really love and I stand by is, believing that you can is more profitable than believing that you can't. And that really goes into this whole concept of luck. A lot of these things that I'm going to share with you throughout this video will play into your own internal belief system about how you are as a human being and how you view yourself in the world. So although I mentioned that no one is technically luckier than others. There are ways that you can increase your luck. And I know that sounds a little bit contradicting because on one hand, I'm saying, Miles, no one's luckier than someone else. But at the same time, I'm also saying you can actually increase your luck and you can increase your surface area for luck. And the way you can first go about doing so is searching for opportunities. The cool thing about the world we live in today is if you live in the same country and you have equal access to a lot of the things that other people have, you typically have equal opportunities. The contrary is not everyone's looking for these opportunities, and at the same time, not everyone is applying themselves for these opportunities. So a great example for this was myself in my scholarship process. I haven't mentioned this too often, but I was able to receive quite a few scholarships throughout my university education that helped me pay for school. Now, am I a lucky person because I got scholarships, or was I the type of person who was searching for these opportunities, then went ahead and applied for them and then put myself forward? And I would actually argue I'm more so the latter. I knew that I wanted to leverage scholarship opportunities to help me fund my education. So I spent a lot of my free time searching for these opportunities. These were the same opportunities that all my other peers also had. But the difference was I knew some peers that got $80,000 plus in scholarship funding, and I knew other peers that had to pay all their university fees out of pocket. But I want you to keep in mind that those same scholarship opportunities were available for both of us. And this is what I mean by searching for opportunities. It's like, if you're constantly on the lookout, if you're constantly on the rise for opportunities and things going on, you can apply yourself to these opportunities and you can deem yourself as more lucky. All right, the next thing, one of my favorite theories, I love talking about this concept, this is the red car theory. You need to understand that luck comes to those that are actively searching for opportunities. When you're actively looking for things, you will find them. So going back to what I said earlier on the searching for opportunities, and this goes back to one of my favorite theories, the red car theory. So if I were to ask you today, like, how many red cars did you see? You would be like, I don't really recall seeing any red cars. But if, for the same time, if I were to tell you that for every red car you see, I'll give you $50 cash, you will then be actively looking for those red cars, and you might come across 6 or 7 different red cars. Now, the same amount of red cars were already on the road, but because you were actively looking for these cars, because you're actively searching for these opportunities, you found them. And that's the same thing that works with luck. The next pillar that I want to touch on is being open to possibilities. So what we typically see is luck comes to the person who is open to new possibilities. So are you the type of person who is closed-minded, not willing to try new things, not willing to explore different avenues of your life? Or on the flip side, are you the type of person that actually loves trying new things, that actually likes putting themselves out there? A person that is willing to try new things will consider themselves probably more lucky, but in reality, they're just open to receiving more opportunities, which will then increase their luck. Another and very important concept is the concept of becoming a lifelong learner. So luck comes to those who are open to learning. As most of you may know, our world is constantly changing. We're constantly dealing with world events, and you constantly have to adapt and learn in new environments. Luck will stop finding you if you're being unreceptive to learning. Learning is an evergreen process. You have to continuously learn. I don't care whether you're in school, whether you're at work, you're always learning. And if you're actively looking for the lessons in your life, you can find luck in those opportunities as well. Another one of my favorites is being able to spot patterns. So one of the things I swear by and I live by is that success leaves clues. I've studied a lot of high performers and a lot of success stories, and there's a lot of commonalities among many of them. One of the common traits I see amongst hyper successful people is that they all love to read. And this book right here, Think and Grow Rich, really hones in the causes of success and the causes of failure and does it in a really good job. But throughout subsequent videos, I'm going to break down what that actually looks like in more detail, so stay tuned for that. But I need you to understand that luck will leave clues. Success will leave clues. You'll find patterns among certain people who are getting certain opportunities, especially when you start to ask questions. Typically, you'll find things like maybe they all exercise, maybe they all read and continue to learn, maybe they have a positive outlook on life, maybe they all believe that they're lucky. All of these things will tie into the patterns that you'll see amongst lucky and successful people. So another very important concept that we have to discuss on is being a highly agentic person. So let's break down what a high agency person is. A high agency person will take their story as an invitation to change it, but a low agency person will be shaped by their story. So what do I mean by that? Let's break this down. So let's take two people, both of which were born into poverty. And these two people were actually brothers. We had Mark and John. Both Mark and John grew up in the same environment, they went to the same schools, and they had the same teachings and upbringings from their parents. But remember, they both grew up in poverty. I want you to understand that John was a highly agentic person. He was someone who did not allow his story to confine him into who he was going to be. He didn't allow his circumstances to dictate his future. And through that, he was able to achieve great success in his life. Whereas Mark, on the other hand, was actually shaped by his story. He felt like, because he was born into poverty, because he didn't have access to certain opportunities, he felt he was automatically doomed to those successes. Remember, Mark and John started from the exact same position, but the difference was one was a high agency person and one was a low agency person. And when I talk to all my high performers, I want you to understand that you need to be a high agency person. This is somebody who takes control of their life rather than just being a passive player in their life. This is someone that takes the cards that they were dealt with and makes something out of themselves. And I really love this concept of being a highly agentic person because it really all comes down to perspective. What is the perspective that you're currently saying saying to yourself every single day? Like, let's say you work a job and you're not really passionate about it. Can you have a healthy perspective on what that job is teaching you? What can you learn from that job? What can you learn from those experiences? And this is the first step into being a highly agentic person. These people take control of their lives. They're not victims. Instead, they are active players constantly contributing into the life that they want to live. Another and very important concept is learning how to accept good luck in your life. You need to learn how to become a magnet to opportunities. The cool thing about life is that there are opportunities all around us. Like every single day, there are opportunities. One of the best things I learned from a very successful entrepreneur is he told me that he loves problems in life. And I had to ask him the question, like, why do you love problems? To him, problems were an opportunity for him to create a business around a problem and be the solution. And he solved many problems throughout his life. So what he actively does throughout his day-to-day basis is he actually goes on Google, searches up what are the common problems, what are things that people are experiencing today, and he uses that to fuel and fund his next business ventures. And I'm a big believer of being a magnet to good luck. Like I think we can all relate to meeting someone who you just thought, man, they succeeded at everything they do, they're extremely lucky. It wasn't that they were extremely lucky, but instead they were a magnet to good luck. They allowed good luck into their lives. They saw their problems as an opportunity to grow and learn from their experiences. And this is what I really want to promote to all my high performers watching this video. So how can we actually be a magnet for more opportunities? One of the big things that I always say is you have to get outside your comfort zone. This is essentially what being a magnet is, right? Travel to that event. There's a ton of networking events, and we live in such an amazing time because some of these networking events can be digital, so you can join on live calls, but some of my personal favorites are the in-person events. If you have never been to an in-person event, whether that's for networking, whether that's for learning a specific skill set, these can absolutely change your life. I cannot describe the energy that radiates when you're in these rooms. You're amongst a group of people who are highly ambitious, highly motivated, and typically there's somebody who is leading the discussion in a very healthy way. But you would never be able to experience that opportunity if you never travel to that event. I have a mentor that loves to say, if you don't go, then you will never know. And that's something that I always remind myself. So travel to that event. Another thing is take that call. A lot of opportunities that you can leverage are sitting on the end of another call, whether that's you having to call and reach out to someone directly, or you being able to accept that call when it's coming in. I'm also a huge believer of doing what scares you. I think you should do what challenges you. Do the thing that gets you outside your comfort zone. This is where the most growth happens. And one of the things I'm learning about, especially when I study things like neuroscience, is our brains were designed to keep us in survival and keep us safe. Our brains weren't designed to be abundant and be very risk adverse. But when you can reframe your brain to search and do hard things, this is when growth occurs, and as a result, you'll grow into the highest version of yourself. And last thing, I'll keep on reiterating this point, is you need to continuously spot opportunities. I want to remind you that there are opportunities around you every single day. The issue is that you are not actively looking for them. Like I remember when I would go on these long walks and I would spend time on just searching for opportunities that are around me in my neighborhood. And I came up with a really comprehensive list of 15 different things, massive projects that I could tackle. When you start to look for opportunities, you'll realize that there's more opportunities in this world than you can even imagine. And then again, this should excite you because there are endless opportunities in this world that we live in today. We are so blessed to have the most advanced technology at our fingertips, from YouTube, from AI, from being able to consume content, from learning from people all across the world, from digital Zoom calls. I don't think a lot of us really realize the power that we have within our hands, but you will never realize this power if you never utilize it and if you never seek those opportunities in the first place. Another strong proponent that I truly believe and promote is the ability to just do more, right? I have a mentor who constantly says this, because once you do more, you increase your surface area for luck to come to you. And I'm gonna break down exactly how this works. So as you do more work, you typically get more feedback on that work. From there, you can make more improvements. And then from those improvements, you're actually gaining more knowledge. So you're becoming more skillful. And then as a result, you're gonna get more success. And this is this beautiful flywheel. But this flywheel doesn't work until you do more work. Remember, by doing more work, you'll get more data. From that data, you're gonna get feedback on how you can improve. From those improvements, you're gonna have more knowledge and more skill sets. You're gonna be well equipped to handle all the pitfalls because you had that data from before. And then as a result, you're gonna get more success. And it's this constant flywheel that keeps spinning over and over again. The issue is a lot of us aren't doing enough work required. And this is something that I'm constantly working on. I've been learning that I have to do a lot more inputs required to get a lot more data so then I can understand and become more skilled at my craft. And again, this should excite you because your ability to do more work will lead you to becoming a more successful person. So then you might ask the question, can luck actually be a skill? Right? We're keeping all these things in mind. And I do believe it actually can be a skill. And one of the ways it can be a skill is through leveraging other people. So you have to understand that in our world that we live in today, we are constantly leveraging other people. And the highest performers at the highest level understand this. You'll quickly realize in this life that you cannot do it all alone. I talked about this before, but whether you want to buy a house, whether you want to work at a particular job, whether you want to hire an employee, whether you want to fall in love, you're going to need others throughout this process. So you have to learn how to work with others to make yourselves more successful and in tune increase your luck. And this is why I'm a big believer in working with people. I know people can come with their own pitfalls and downsides, but at the same time, you need to understand that people can take you places that money couldn't even bring you. And what I'm noticing throughout my own journey is that a lot of high performers that you see in certain positions aren't more talented than you are. Instead, they've been leveraging their own networks. They've been leveraging the connections that they have to get themselves in high positions. I've worked so many jobs where I've seen people in certain leadership positions, and then when you come to unravel the layers, you'll come to find out that they knew somebody who helped them leverage this connection, and they were able to get in. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they were more skillful than you, but what they did use was their leverage and their connections. So as a high performer, don't neglect other people on your journey. And I'm not someone who's saying use other people to get success. No, learn to work with others. Be a valuable resource to other people. Be someone who blesses other people's lives, and you'll see how that comes back to you tenfold. So that is it for today's presentation. This is a masterclass on increasing your surface area for luck. I want you to understand that, again, luck in itself isn't really real. I know some people might argue, well, I grew up in one of the best countries in the world and someone else might have grown up in poverty. And although those are compelling arguments, when you look at someone versus player standpoint, your luck will ultimately come down to your perspective. The reason why this is true is you can take someone who's from a third world country who then emigrated to a first world country and then became a massive success story. And then you can take that same person who was actually born into a first world country and then ended up doing nothing spectacular with their life. A lot of the things that we talk about in terms of luck comes down to your own perception of what you think is luck. And I need you to understand, as a high performer, it is actually more beneficial to believe that you are a lucky person, because again, in your own life, you're gonna find evidence for your own luck. When I think back to myself, I would consider myself a lucky person. I grew up in a first world country. I had amazing parents and mentors. I never lacked food or opportunities. And all those things have contributed to my luck. But at the same time, I could sit here and say, well, I'm an unlucky person. I came from this background, or I had these doors that are closed to me because of X, Y, and Z. Now, I know that's not true. And I want you to understand that I know that I'm not an unlucky person. I know that I am a lucky person, but someone in my exact same position can actually believe that they are unlucky, and they will find evidence to make that a reality. And now that we understand the concept of luck, we understand at the same time that we can increase our luck by searching for more opportunities, being more proactive, being a highly agentic person. And ultimately, this will lead you to the success that you're seeking as a high performer. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. This is a high performing video. If you're watching a video like this, you are somebody who is a high performer who wants to take their life and propel it to the next level. And if you want to work with me one-on-one, in the first link in my description, I have a link to book a call with me to see if you're a good fit for my one-on-one coaching. Also, at the same time, I'm building out the waitlist for my high performers community. This is where you can connect digitally with other high performers who are talking about these concepts more in depth and working towards their goals every single day. So if that sounds like you, check out that link in my description as well. But you know what I always say, make sure to always believe that you will achieve. My name is Miles, aka Mr. High Performance, and I am signing off. Woo!